So you've heard that the market is nuts. It is. And you're wondering, should I buy or shouldn't I buy? Or if I do buy, am I going to have buyer's remorse that I didn't wait? Let's talk about that. Hey, welcome to the Living in Coastal Virginia channel. My name is Dan Inman, and we talk everything live, work, play here in the Coastal Virginia area. If you do me a huge favor at the end of this content, if you like it, hit the like button, if I've earned it. And if you'd like to see more content like this, you can hit subscribe, little bell notification, and you'll be notified when new content like this drops. And as much as I love making this content, I'd love more to help you with your real estate needs. And that's sort of what this video is about today. So all of our contact information is down below. We'd love to hear from you when we help people move in and out of the area as smooth and easy and painless as possible. And yeah, you can contact us below, get into our calendars, and we can talk about what would make sense for you and your family. But you came here today to talk about how do I avoid buyer's remorse in 2021. So let's talk about that. Today I'm going to give you 5 kind of thoughts, 5 rules, 5 mantras or trite sayings for you to kind of have in the back of your head so that you can process through whether buying makes sense for you at all. Because it may not. And we want to make sure that if you are going to buy, that in 1 year, 6 months, 2 years, 4 years, you don't have buyer's remorse and look back unfavorably upon that purchasing decision. So I'm going to give you kind of 5 general thoughts, and you can use these to help make that process and make that decision for yourself. So number 1 is what I like to call the 4 buckets. And the 4 buckets is understanding, I don't know if you guys have ever played like The Sims or a video game, right? You have a character and you're leveling them up. Well, when you first make the character, you have like, so let's say 25 credits, and you get to go put these credits in, you know, they look good and their charisma and their strength and their intelligence, right? And you only have so many of these things that you can put into each slot. Well, buying a house is very similar. You have kind of 4 buckets or 4 general buckets that you can put into these. So if you have $200,000 or $2 million, you only have a certain limited amount of funds that you can put in each one of these buckets. The first one is location, right? The idea of location is just, well, they say it on TV, location, 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 right? It's a trite saying. The oceanfront is very, very different than out in the country in Suffolk. You know, somewhere in the city in a condo-rise building is different than a place in the country that has 14 acres. Location makes a difference. High crime area, low crime area. Desirable school district, undesirable school district. For me, location is the number 1 thing to pay attention to because it makes the biggest difference on your everyday life and the long-term sellability of the house. Number 2 on that 4 bucket list is going to be condition, right? Is the home in great condition or poor condition? Does it smell like cat pee, or is it everything in there, you know, brand new, right? So the reason I mentioned condition is number 2 because it's number 2 on my list. Most first-time home buyers and second time and third time and fourth time generally overestimate what they can do or are willing to do or what the cost of improving those things are. Now, I'm not saying don't buy something that you can go in there and put some sweat equity into and fix up yourself, but I think the idea of moving into something that is obviously well cared for, you know, maybe think about it like this. If you're going to go buy a car and the back seat was, you know, full of trash and, you know, items and dirty clothes and that type of thing, and the carpet was dirty and the seat had a tear in it, right? You would go, well, this car's probably not very well taken care of, and you wouldn't want to pay a lot for it. House is kind of the same way. You know, does the caulking around the windows new and fresh and taken care of? Is the condition of the roof in good condition? Do they have records where they have serviced the HVAC equipment? These all go into what the long-term cost of home ownership is going to be like, and you want to think about that. So number one, location. Number two, condition. Number three is going to be amenities, and what I mean by amenities is luxury items. Is it a fiberglass insert for the shower or a really nice tile job? Is it laminate countertops or granite? Is it basic appliances or really nice upper grade stainless steel Samsung appliances? All of these things kind of go into play. Now, these things are far more changeable in a house than location, and much easier to upgrade than overall condition items. So I put that third on my list because it's much more easy to change when you move in. That being said, there is a cost versus value report put out by a major magazine company where they go and they track the cost of upgrading things like bathrooms and kitchens and master additions and that type of thing, and how much money was spent versus how much the house was sold for later on. Most of the time, this is a fraction or a percentage of the total amount, right? If you spend $1, maybe you get 60 cents back. Now, obviously, we're paying professionals to do this, right? We're paying a professional that has profit and overhead and errors and emissions insurance and markups that they have to do to remain a profitable company. So if you do the work yourself, that makes it a little bit different. You want to make sure that you're doing like and kind work, right? You don't want to be doing a tiling job that someone obviously walks in and goes, man, this is obviously a DIY project, right? You want to be able to do at least somewhat similar of a job that a professional can do. But moving into this third bucket, or where I'm going with this, is that going in with these things are already done. Someone has already absorbed the cost of installing those items, and they've taken the loss on that project. And so moving into a house that has all those things done already gives it a high likelihood that you get to reap the benefit of somebody else's cost. Bucket number 4 is size, right? And I put this last on the list. Obviously, if you have 14 kids, you're gonna need some space, right? But as you're going through location, condition, amenities, and size, you can probably sacrifice a smaller room here, an office there, to improve those other categories, right? Because as you pour more into one bucket, it means by necessity you don't have the resources to pour it into another bucket. Now, you can make this decision however you want to, but as you're going through and looking at homes and considering homes, you want to think about, where should I put my priority, right? What affects every single day? If I can't move my house, what are the things that are unchangeable, right? That I can't change, and what are the things that I can change? Can I make a sacrifice in one category that'll be a much better benefit long-term in another category? So just some things to think about. Concept number 2 is start early. Now, most people do not want to talk to a loan officer or a real estate agent early because they feel like someone's going to sell them on something. And I totally get that. That stigma or that stereotype has been earned. We hope to do something different here and to treat people different here on the channel and within our business, but the benefits far outweigh the potential costs. Let's go into finances. If you were to start that process really early and find something on your credit, and I can tell you, working with my wife, that there are more people that would think that they have nothing on their credit that needs to be fixed than you would actually be, inclined to say. And that can make a huge difference, because the difference between, say, whenever you go to buy a house and you're getting a loan, the difference between, say, 3.5% and 3% by improving your credit can mean the difference between hundreds and possibly thousands of dollars long-term in that home ownership and that loan. The other things you may want to talk about is down payment and loan program type, right? Do I need to do conventional? Should I do FHA? Do I do VA? How do I avoid the funding fee with the VA loan? Should I be looking at doing 5% down or 20% down? Is the cost of PMI worth getting rid of, putting 20% down, or would I be better off investing that money in my current investments? Those are all things that a good loan officer can go over with you and help give you guidance on early in the process. So if you decide that you don't want to put the 20% down and only put the 5% down, you actually might be closer to buying a home than you actually think you are. Another conversation to maybe have early is just general finances. So let's say that you've saved the money for the down payment and you even have the money to pay for your own closing costs, which we're finding in today's market is very common because the homes are so competitive that buyers are no longer able to just roll the costs into the loan or bid the property up and get the seller to pay for those, because they're getting 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 offers. That there are buyers out there willing and able to pay their own closing costs. So if that exists, right, you can receive up to $15,000 per parent as a gift, tax-free. So if you're a married couple, that would be mom, dad give husband $15,000 each, mom, dad give wife $15,000 each, and then the other parents do the exact same things. You can actually receive up to $120,000 tax-free for the home purchase. This may be a conversation worth having, and I'll tell you a little story on why I think this conversation is worth having. Let me start with a short story. So when I was a young guy in the Navy, age of 22, my grandmother sent me a check in the mail, and it's for $500, right? Mimi, if you ever watch this, thank you, and I appreciate you. So she sent that, and I put it into my drawer desk. I'm a young guy in the Navy, right? And I've got a little ego thing going on. I don't need my grandma sending me money. I didn't deposit it. My mom calls me about a month later and asks me, Daniel, did you get it? Mimi's asking me if she didn't see it get withdrawn from the account. She needs to know if she needs to write you another check. And I said, Mom, I feel kind of guilty taking Mimi's money. I'm 22 years old. I have full-time income. Like, I don't need to be taking money from grandma. And my mom kind of lays into me and tells me that I'm being selfish. Well, that's weird. I didn't understand. And she said, Dan, it's not necessarily about you accepting money as an adult male from your grandmother. It's about her ability to give you a gift. Your grandmother and grandfather have worked hard and saved money their entire lives, and it means the world to them to be able to give to their kids and their grandkids. And so I didn't understand the fact that I was taking away the ability of them to give a gift. And so what I would encourage you to do is having that conversation about that $15,000 might be worthwhile having, because they may have already thought about that. That might already be something that they've budgeted for. So maybe have that conversation. And again, wouldn't know about this if you didn't start that conversation early. Guiding principle, just number 3, would be, should you buy at all? Right? So I'm going to put a link in here about a website by Michael Blue Jay it's a rent versus buy calculator, right? And so this is breaking down the numbers to the nth degree on whether it makes sense to buy a house. Now, the general rule of thumb is 5 years, right? I've had clients who, because the market has been very, very good recently, who bought 2 years ago and sold today and made money. That is the abnormal. The historical index is like 3.4%. That homes appreciate 3.4% every single year. And the rate at which you pay off your loan, the difference between those two, means that you would generally break even somewhere in year 4 or 5. They call it the 5-year rule. So typically my advice to people is, hey, if you're going to live here for at least 5 years or more, it makes sense to buy, because you're going to be here long enough for you not have to bring money to the table when you sell. But the question you really need to be asking is this the right time? Do you need flexibility in your career to be able to move from one city to the other? Are you young? Are you married? Do you have kids? All of these things can impact whether you think it's time to buy or not. There are emotional reasons and logical reasons to make purchases, and I'm going to get to that in number 4 here in a second. But really it needs to be an evaluation of, is this the right period of time in my life to buy a house? And do the numbers make sense? In making that evaluation of whether you should buy or not, you should ask yourself about the money question, right? Do you have money in what I like to call your oh shit fund, right? Oh shit, my transition broke. Oh shit, I need to go here because someone's sick and I need to fly home, right? You don't want to deplete those reserves if you don't have them in buying a house and not have those reserves anymore, right? Because buying a house, things will break. They eventually do. Just like cars and anything else, things eventually wear out. And you want to have some reserves there to be careful and to make sure that you have them available when things do eventually wear out and break. I will say this, I do have quite a few clients who are younger and they make the decision to live well below their means, and they end up buying a 2-bedroom townhome or a 3-bedroom 2-bath starter home in a starter neighborhood, where it's very, very easily where they can go in, put a little bit of sweat equity into it, rent out a room while they live there, and then when they get deployed or PCS to a new area, they can easily rent out the house for more than what their mortgage is plus property management. So in that scenario, you're already playing the long game, and it might make sense to buy a investment property or something that could be investment property long term, as long as your rents can cover both the mortgage payment and the property management fee. Number 4, or a guiding principle I think is helpful to think about, and it kind of hints on number 3 about being ready, is what I call ROI versus ROL, return on investment versus return on life. There are perfectly logical reasons to do things, and then we do things emotionally. We do this with food all the time, right? Should be eating salad and lean meat, but we eat pizza and ice cream anyway, right? So I'll give you another story here just to think about the balance of these two ideas, because many times we like to think that we're perfectly logical, but many times as humans, we make an emotional decision and then justify it later. So I had a friend who owns a house in the water in Norfolk, and he called me up and said, "Hey, Dan, I'm thinking about putting a dock up. Would you let me know if it improves the value of my home?" So well, let me do a little bit of research. So I went and looked in the neighborhood, and homes ranged, depending on the neighborhood where on the water it was, the lowest of the 4s and 500s to the highest of up above $1 million. And I looked at the homes and I said, well, the homes that are above $800,000, about 75% of them have docks. The homes that are below that, about 30% have a dock. But when I look at the data over the last 10 years, there's no measurable decrease in the amount of days on market and no measurable increase on the purchase price, whether or not it had a dock. So I asked him, what's the purpose? Why are you wanting to put a dock up? Is it simply just because you want to improve the value of your home? And he said, no, my grandson is 3 years old and I want to be able to go fishing with him. I said, well, sounds to me like an ROL decision. And so he kind of looked at me cockeyed and, what do you mean, Dan? I said, well, Gary, this is a decision where it's a return on life. You only have so many years with your grandson that you're going to be able to go fishing. Buy the dock. It's about your time with your grandson, not necessarily your time back or your money back on it. Yeah, will you probably get a little bit of improvement? Sure. But that decision alone was more about that special time with his grandson. So there are going to be plenty of decision-making processes in buying home, improving homes, that some of them are perfectly logical, right? Can I buy a home that I can easily rent out for more than what my mortgage payment is? And then there's going to be other ones. Well, I want to be within walking distance of the beach. I want to have one that has a steam shower. I want a house that has a pool, right? And you have to constantly balance these out, because you can make an ROI decision where things perfectly make sense on paper, but then 2 years into it, you're kicking yourself because you should have splurged or gone for the thing that you really wanted. Number 5 is pay attention to the hidden things, which is based off of a book that I read called Drunk Tank Pink, which is based off of a study where they went into drunk cells and painted them pink. And the people who were put into the drunk cell, people who get drunk and then get arrested in public, they would throw them in there and it was colored pink, and the amount of violence was drastically reduced. What was kind of funny is a lot of football teams actually did this to their competitors or their opposing teams before they started regulating this type of thing, but to hopefully make them less aggressive. So there are things that influence human behavior. A good example of this would be Hans Zimmer. Hans Zimmer is hired because he makes you feel certain things in his musical scores in all of these superhero movies. I think he does Batman and Superman and what else? What other ones has he done?
Anything that Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, I mean, the man is incredible, right? And so if you go and you're watching the movie and then you turn the volume down, you get the visual effect, but there's something about that audio, that the amazing symphony that he creates that makes you feel a certain way. And there are plenty of things that do this, right? And so there's another quote that I want to layer on top of this by Winston Churchill. It says, "We influence our homes and thereafter they influence us." Meaning we build and design our homes and thereafter they encourage us to do certain things. Does your home have a front porch? A deep enough front porch that it's actually enjoyable to go out there and sit? And does it have a ceiling fan? Well, if you do have that, and it does face the street, which is beautiful to look at, the likelihood that you go out there and look at those things and sit there and engage with your community is rather high, right? Another one would be, like I mentioned earlier, about being close to the beach. Well, if you are close to the beach, the likelihood that you get up, go out your door, and walk to the beach every single day rather than being a 30-minute drive is much, much higher. So you kind of want to think about, how does this live and feel every single day? East Beach, I think, is a really good example of this. There's tons of green space. The sidewalks are very beautiful. They've done a great job with the landscape architecture. It makes you want to get out and walk in the community. I used to live on a place over in Bayview, and it was on Tidewater Drive. I hated going outside because of the amount of noise that was on Tidewater. It's a busy street. Wish I really would have done my homework prior to doing that. I also found out after I bought the house that my house was on the walking path from where the local middle school let out. And so every single day I would have this herd of middle schoolers that would walk through my yard. It drove me nuts. I don't know if that's just because there's gray getting in my beard, but these are things that you want to pay attention to that affect your everyday living, and something worth considering. Harkening back to that number one about what's changeable and not changeable, I didn't pay attention to location. One of the things that was changeable there was that there was a ton of mosquitoes in that area. That's easy to change. You pay for a mosquito service. So if I would have paid better attention to the 4 buckets, taking my own advice, I wouldn't have moved there. So, hey, I hope those 5 things help you think through and reduce the amount of potential for buyer's remorse in buying today's market. It is kind of a crazy market out there, and you're gonna need the proper advice if you find a house that you absolutely adore. The likelihood is that 5 or 6 or 10 other families are going to like it as well. And so you need to have the proper guidance to make sure that you actually win that contract. So as much as I like making this content, I'd like to help you do that as well. I'm on the real estate side, my wife's on the loan side. We'd love to help this transition either in or out, or maybe moving up or down in the home size range in the area as easy and smooth as possible. All of our contact information is down below, and you can get a hold of us there. So if I've earned it, maybe hit that like button and hit the little subscribe button to see more content like this. Until next time, we'll see you later.